English 1, RPA 1, Passage number 2. Read the selection and choose the best answer to each question. Adapted from an autobiography of Theodore Roosevelt, by Theodore Roosevelt. On October 27, 1858, I was born at number 28 East 20th Street, New York City, in the house where my family lived. My parents, 2 sisters, and my brother. We spent the summers in the country at one place or another. We children, of course, loved the country more than anything. We disliked the city. We were always wildly eager to get out to the country when spring came, and very sad when in the late fall the family moved back to town. In the country we, of course, had all kinds of pets: cats, dogs, rabbits, a raccoon, and a sorrel, Shetland pony, named General Grant. When my younger sister first heard of the real General Grant, she thought it was a great coincidence that someone would give a person the same name as a pony. 30 years later, my own children had their own pony, Grant. My father, Theodore Roosevelt, was the best man I ever knew. He combined strength and courage with gentleness, tenderness, and great unselfishness. He would not tolerate in his children selfishness or cruelty, laziness, cowardice, or untruthfulness. As we grew older, he made us understand that the same standard of conduct was expected of both men and women. With great love and patience, he held us to a high level of conduct through insistence and discipline. He never physically punished me, yet I feared him more than all others. He was entirely fair, and we children adored him. My father worked hard at his business. He was interested in almost every social reform movement, and he did an immense amount of charitable work himself. He was a big, powerful man with a leonine face, and his heart filled with gentleness for those who needed help or protection, and with anger against a bully or oppressor. I was a sickly, delicate boy, suffered from asthma, and frequently had to be taken away on trips to find a place where I could breathe. One of my memories is of my father walking up and down the room with me in his arms at night when I was a very small boy, and of sitting up in bed gasping with my father and mother trying to help me. I didn't go to school much. Most of the time I had tutors. My aunt taught me when I was small. At one point, we had a French governess. When I was 14 years old, in the winter of 1872, I visited Egypt, journeyed up the Nile, traveled through the Holy Land and part of Syria. By this time, I had a working knowledge of bird life. I had no real knowledge of the ornithology of Egypt, but I picked up a book in Cairo by an Englishman. This began my interest in the subject. When I got back to America at the age of 15, I began serious study to enter Harvard, under a private tutor. I could not go to school because I knew so much less than most others in some subjects, and so much more in other subjects. In science and history and geography I was strong, but I was very weak in languages and mathematics. In 1876, I entered Harvard, graduating in 1880. I was a reasonably good student, in the top 10% of my class. My chief interest was science. When I entered college, I was devoted to natural history. My father always encouraged me to make my own way in life, and when I was a freshman, he told me that if I wished to be a scientist, I could be. He explained that I should be sure that I really intensely desired it, because if I went into it, I must make it a serious career. He said that if I was not going to earn money, I must even things up by not spending it. In other words, if I went into a scientific career, I must definitely abandon all thought of money-making and must find my pleasure elsewhere. Public domain from an autobiography of Theodore Roosevelt by Theodore Roosevelt. Copyright 1920. First published in 1913. Published by Charles Scribner's Sons, New York. An example of a cartoon that may have appeared in a newspaper during Theodore Roosevelt's lifetime.